is Ethan Tingler, front tire changer for the 3-car Austin Dillon. You're listening to Back of the Pack podcast on Fantasy Focus. Hell yeah.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 33 of the Back of the Pack podcast here on Fantasy Focused in partnership with Monkey Knife Fight. We are back from a 1-week hiatus. How you gents doing?
Doing great. Doubleheader weekend coming off of a nice off weekend or off week for Back of the Pack guys. So it was a pretty chalky weekend, as we would say. You know, Hamlin and Harvick both got a win trading punches here in 2020. But happy to see Daytona on the schedule. Last race of the regular season, heading off into the playoffs. It's going to be a great stretch here.
Yeah, Levy, glad to know that you're back in one piece. I'm glad that you can also wear NASCAR gear. I figured you could only wear pastels and assorted salmon Nantucket red type of shorts. We don't need to see your crotch right now, but I'm just glad you're back. I hope it was a restful week in the sunshine, fighting waves, playing spike ball. Freeman and I were here in the trenches. We're spitting numbers back and forth. We lost a bit of money on Monkey Knife Fight. I think at this point it's called Monkey Knife Takedown. And
Monkey Knife No Fight.
Yeah, it's like a sweep. It's like a sweeping crane kick that just crushes my skull. But we're back. We're gonna try to fight it. And yeah, man. Let's talk some racing here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. And, you know, I actually brought my microphone. Like, I had every intention of recording while on vacation in Nantucket. But, you know, one too many of those Miller Lights over there, Bucky. And don't think I was in any condition to be live on a microphone. So I apologize for the absence. I apologize for the lack of Monkey Knife Fight plays. I apologize for not setting us up in our own pool. We had a double header. You know, we could have each lost $40 against each other.
We forgive you.
Yeah, I could have really stood to lose another 40.
I know, right? But, you know, of course, I'm excited to see that Denny gets another win. Shocker. Harvick gets another win. I mean, these are some of my favorite drivers, but it's getting a little boring, if you will. But thankfully, we got the playoffs around the corner, and I definitely want to dive into that because I have a million questions. I know I asked probably the same questions last year, so I probably forgot most of the information about NASCAR playoffs. But I am excited to probably have a mix-up for the winner here at Daytona. What do you guys think?
Definitely. I'm hoping, fingers crossed for a mix-up. It's something that, you know, I think that we're really starving for in this series. I mean, ever since, who was that, Cole Custer's win, it's been pretty straightforward racing. You know, not you know, the starts and the finish has been kind of what we would have expected, and the in-between had some entertainment, but it wasn't anything really huge and noteworthy. So, you know, looking at Daytona ahead, we were there a couple of weeks ago at the road course. This weekend we'll be at the Oval, so we're restrictor plate racing. This is the great equalizer in the NASCAR arena. You know, we have 4 of these races a year, and they are, you know, the creme de la creme of entertainment when it comes to, you know, the races each weekend. So excited to be restrictor plate racing. It's going to be big packs. You know, the big one's going to be there. A lot of drivers, you know, that are starving for points could either create issues or become a victim of others' issues because of the style of racing this is. So it's setting us up really strongly for a regular season conclusion.
Yeah, I'm excited for the race. I mean, just looking at the odds itself, there's only one guy under 1,000 plus 1,000, and that's my boy Denny. But before we get into that, do you want to touch on Dover a little bit? Any additional thoughts there besides the fact that Hamlin and Harvick just continue to dominate?
Yeah, and even, you know, aside from just a win from a dominating, you know, perspective, Harvick won both stages and the race on Sunday. I think Hamlin won one of the stages, but, you know, it's just these guys know how to be around at the right time, and we always talk about it. If your car isn't up front throughout the race and you aren't keeping up with it, you don't know how to how to cater your car to the race as the day goes on. And really, I think those guys being up there has given them the advantage of running those hot laps, more or less practice laps out front in clean air to be able to diagnose their car. Really, the biggest thing that I think is hindering the success of drivers like Kyle Busch is the exact opposite reason. He's not having as much time out front in clean air like you would in practice to really fine tune that car. So these two, in Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin were kind of in the right place at the right time at the beginning of the year, beginning of the quarantine year, if you will, to understand these cars, get a leg up, get a pace or two ahead, and they've been able to maintain that. So hopefully we see that mixed up, this weekend at Daytona, because it is restrictor plate, and it isn't as much reliant on the individual cars and drivers as it is other tracks.
So I got a question for both of you. I take Kevin Harvick as a guy when he gets that clean sweep of the stages and the win, that he leaves that lot and he immediately heads to McDonald's and gets himself a victory soft serve cone. Like, that's his one treat he gets all year. When he has that clean sweep, he's just like, oh, by golly.
I'm going to treat myself.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Matty Kenseth, you want to come along? You spot me that cone, sponsorship, buddy. Yeah, I get my cone.
See, I picture him just like pulling up into the local Sunoco, with his VIP Bush card, just like grabbing a free 6-pack of Bush and walking out of there. Maybe a can of dip. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
He's definitely loading down with some Bush and some apples, and he's going to party. Yeah.
Here's a question though. And Freeman, you might know the answer to this. These guys, they can't chew when they're in that car, right? Like, how does that work? You can't do. We all know. I don't know if you know because you got them pearly whites. But anybody who's anybody in my circles, not that you're out of my circle, you're like a Venn diagram. You're like kind of on there, but you're kind of not on there. But anybody who's in the circle, if I have a 4+ hour road trip, that's a can of dip, man.
Yeah.
Like, you're throwing in the hogs and you're just cruising. You got your spitter. By the end of it, maybe you threw some sunflower seeds in there to break up the monotony.
Yeah.
That thing is chock full of dip spit and seed shells. And that is the mark of a true road trip. I feel like they don't have that liberty when they're cruising at 190 miles an hour.
Not anymore. Back in the day when they didn't regulate helmets or suits or closed face helmets, you had drivers in the before the modern era, but they had cigarettes in their mouth while the cars are racing. You get out, you get a new pair of goggles and a pack of cigarettes for this, the next 200 miles. So it was a thing. Much like even recently where tobacco had a place in baseball where they're trying to clamp down on it. NASCAR has definitely gone away from that. Back in the day before it was Sprint and Nextel and all these different sponsors, Winston was their sponsor, which is cigarette brand, dude. Growing up and going to those races, I was peddled dip and cigarettes all the time. Everyone around is trying to just throw it in your face. And as a company as a brand that was so centered around alcohol and tobacco, it had a huge place in the sport, but it quickly became regulated for all the drivers. But you better believe anyone who isn't in a driver suit has a lip in. They've got some, they've got their goodies rocking and rolling, and they're riding their vibes right.
Oh man, just love it. It's NASCAR morale,
Yeah. Well, one thing so off the NASCAR path, when it comes to chewing tobacco, I was always told, I played lacrosse growing up, right? So we were always told, like, Canadian lacrosse and hockey players are always a little bit rougher around the edges, right? They were just meatier and beefier and just tough dudes. We were told growing up that they would put the chewing tobacco in the webbing of their toes during games so that they get buzzed and high and get the nicotine high during the game as it went through the webbing of their toes. So a little bit disconnected, but connected in a way. So maybe some NASCAR drivers have some chewing tobacco in their socks.
I don't understand that.
You just blew my mind.
It's no different than putting in your lip, dude. You get it with the high with the carbon, whatever helps it get in your blood system. It'll get right in there to your feet.
Dude, that's what they're doing.
It's called plexiglass for the record.
Plexiglass, there it was.
Yeah.
Sounds really healthy, guys.
Some kind of glass.
Yeah, it chews up your lip. Those Canadians with their tins, as they call them, they don't call them cans like we do here in the States. Tins. They cost a pretty penny up there. So they're probably they're probably packing some real small little toe hogs.
I'm interested to know if that's like legit. We need to find some hockey friends and ask them if they have anyone that still partaking.
Yes.
Can you imagine if they're just spitting all over the ice? Oh my god.
Could you imagine taking those socks off after it was full of sweat and dip for 3 hours?
Don't talk to me about socks. It's been raining here in Florida for 3
Ruin
weeks.
your
I've been
shoes.
golfing in it. Oh, I finally went out. I bought waterproof golf shoes yesterday.
That a boy.
I had enough of it. I was like, I'm
Scuba
done
Steve
with this
over
shit.
here.
Sorry we got off topic, but I had all sorts of good stuff.
Colin joining us in the chat here. He says he's heard that about hockey players before. So it
There we
is
go.
not-
Help me out, Colin. I'm not a bullshitter. There we go.
There we go. I
That's
love
pretty
it, man.
awesome.
Bucky, I'm actually about to hit the road as soon as this episode is over for a 3-hour road trip, and I have a full bag of Big's sunflower seeds ready to go. Like, I can't wait to crack into those bad boys.
Yeah.
Are they original or flavored?
Well, we have one bag of original and one bag of Old Bay. I'm more of an OG guy, but you know, my wife
Agreed.
likes to dabble in the Old Bay.
Yeah. Barbecue, ranch. I mess with those sometimes too.
Yeah, but they give you like that wicked seed breath, you know.
True. Give and take.
Worth it. Beats my breath, I'll tell you that.
All right, let's dive into the playoffs, guys, because I have a lot of dumb questions here, and I know there's a lot of new NASCAR fans in 2020. There's no doubt about that. A lot of my own personal friends have become NASCAR fans, and there's questions about the playoffs. So what are we looking at here? Like bird's eye view, Freeman.
Yeah.
Can you give
Let
us
me set the scene and we'll dive into it. So
All
this weekend, the Daytona race is the last regular season race of the year. Leading up to this, every event, contributes to a total point total. You get different increases for wins and finishes depending on your order. So have it. What we're looking at this weekend is we have 3 drivers fighting for 2 points positions in the playoffs. So there's 16 drivers that are going to make the playoffs after this weekend, and there are 4 different rounds, and every 3 races in the first 3 rounds, 4 drivers are removed, much like a bracket. So it goes from 16 to 12 to 8 to 4. And then the final race is the first person of that 4 to cross the finish line wins the championship. So, looking again at the race ahead of us, this is not determining anything about the championship, I guess. It is determining a small portion of the championship picture, but a lot of it is already set. We're playing for more or less 2 final positions that will then set the playoffs for next week.
All right. So here's my initial question. When we get to Sunday, September 6th at Darlington, right? Round 1 of the playoffs, the first race of that round, right? Is it literally only 16 drivers on the track, or all the other scrubs that didn't make it also racing?
All 40.
Yeah, Bucky knows this one.
So like, what's their incentive? Like, they have nothing to race for? Do they still get paid if they win?
Yeah.
So arguably, for some of these drivers who aren't in the playoffs, let's say, for example, a Michael McDowell or a Ricky Stenhouse Jr., if they were able to come up and win one of the championship races, if they were not in the playoffs, it's arguably more valuable than a non-playoff win, excluding the eligibility for the playoffs. So, this is their time to come and play spoiler. And I think it's one of the many aspects that make this very unique, is that, we are able to have everyone on the playing field, even if they're not on the grid. So I missed something clearly, because I don't.
Bucky just almost poured a beer all over his face.
I thought he.
Listen, man, it's been a long week.
All right, it makes sense though. I get it now. I was like, so you're telling me when we get to the final 4, there's literally just 4 guys driving in a circle?
Yeah,
and
that'd be tough. That'd be tough. But it's again, one of those things that's very unique about the sport is, the reason that they have done this too is to kind of reset the field. So in the past, what had happened 26 races into the year, there was 1 or 2 individuals, like in this situation, a Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin, who were, far out ahead from the pack. Harvick alone has like 100 and some point lead on Hamlin straight up right now. So 100-point lead is over 2 races. So, if that continued to extrapolate, that's not going to be very entertaining to kind of see unfold. So NASCAR does a hard reset, and we literally have a 10 race season here ahead of us. So it's really exciting compared to, the early 2000s, when we would know a champion 4 or 5 weeks ahead of time.
Right. Okay. No, that's cool. I like that. That's like I say it, I feel like on every episode, that's the best thing about NASCAR. They're always making the product better. They are the tweak masters.
Yep, exactly. And as long as they're making changes and considering changes, again, I'd always say it. I'm gonna be here for it and ready to watch it. So, looking at those questions ahead too. I want to make clear, going into this weekend, there really are, like we talked about, two positions that three drivers are fighting over. But like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast before we went live, anyone in the top 30 who is outside of the playoff point bracket, if you will, if they win, they're in the playoffs. So that leaves a lot of room for some of these middle of the pack names to surprise a lot of individuals and insert their name in a playoff picture. So a lot to kind of be determined here over the weekend, even though there's a very few number of spots available.
That kind of sucks. Like, so what if the 35th guy in the standings wins? He just nice win out of the back. See ya.
Yep. Sucks.
Get a nice little check though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just like Justin Haley, right? So he was in a situation where he was, he won a race and he was, further along in the points, but that is huge for his career, his team's success, their first win, his first win, and a lot of that will definitely lead to more success.
I got a question here about the races within the playoff structure here, especially the round of 16. I do find it a bit crazy that we're doing two short tracks. I know Richmond's kind of a hybrid, but Richmond's as much of a short track as anything.
Yep.
So with both Richmond and Bristol, I don't really understand how you go with the round of 12. You're doing three straights. You got a super speedway and then two speedways. Why wouldn't you just intermix, put one of the speedways in the round of 16 and swap that with either Richmond or Bristol in the round of 12?
All right, so that round of 12 race at Charlotte is a roval. It's not the oval.
Okay.
So we have the Speedway, the two short tracks in the round of 16. We have Vegas, which is Speedway. We have a Super Speedway in Dega, and then we have the Charlotte Road Course, which is much like Darlington, Daytona, where they turn the oval into that infield. So again, that's a relatively new track on the circuit. They put these races here for entertainment value. Everyone loves Darlington. Everyone loves Richmond. Everyone loves Bristol. They're really front loading this, getting all that action in, and then following it up with a diversified set of races, right? So we have three different race types in the round of 12, and in the round of 8, we have Kansas, Texas, and Martinsville. So three very unique tracks, but not as unique as the previous round. So, they're setting us up for a lot of beating and banging, hurt feelings at these small tracks, and then take them to big tracks. And then that results in calamity always.
And then for me, Phoenix is a dud. I don't love Phoenix. Is this always where the championship is?
Yep. This is the first year, and as long as I can remember, that it's not at Homestead. I like Homestead as a racetrack. I like it a lot. It became synonymous with championship weekend, and it's going to be weird to see it in Phoenix. Phoenix is, guess what? A Kevin Harvick playground. Homeboy goes there and gets W's like he's, cracking Bush Light Apple. So
the elusive Bush Light Apple.
Yeah, right. So he's
ever elusive.
He's the favorite, easy peasy. If he makes it to the round of 8 with the strong, with the amount of points that he has, he's going to be the favorite going into it, if not sooner. So it plays to the strengths, but again, these are still very diverse tracks. So it happens that Kevin Harvick's a badass at all of them.
To be clear, when we get to the final round, the championship round, it's 4 drivers, right? Whoever finishes the best out of those, regardless of how many points they've had throughout the playoffs, wins the championship.
You got it right.
All
so
right.
they don't have to win.
Yeah,
Everyone else can crash out. It can be
Right.
37, 38, 39, and 40, and the 37th place driver wins.
So it cuts off and resets.
Yep. So every round, they give them 1,000 more points. So like right now, for perspective, Kevin Harvick has like 1,100 points. So after the race this weekend, they're going to top 16 will get 1,000 points added to their total. So they're going to be far and away from the field. And then the next 3 weeks later, when 4 are removed, the remaining 12 get 1,000 points added. So they're continuing to tier up. So that's kind of how the outlay looks.
Now, my boy Denny, I don't believe he's ever won a championship, correct?
Arguably the best driver without a championship in NASCAR at the moment.
Is this the year of Denny? Or are we or do we lean Harvick?
I think so. Here's what you need to keep in mind on the playoff grid is the points that you win and earn in the regular season carry over from round to round. So if you have 25 playoff points from your wins and stage wins from the regular season, you're going to have a 25-point advantage going into the first race of round 16, 12, and 8. But the championship round, everyone is at 0. So there's still an advantage to being able to carry this over. But again, there's a lot of intricacies about these points that we have to keep in mind. Because again, this is while we do get a point for a position, there's a lot of other things going on from the stages and finishing order and things like that. So we'll have to keep our head on a swivel.
It's just part of me feels like in 2020, there's just no way in hell that anyone besides Harvick or Denny is going to win this championship. I just don't know if I see it. Yeah, I mean, you got to go on a serious heater to take these two down.
You do. Well, here's the thing.
Get out of here,
yes,
Logano.
You have to go on a heater, or you need to be in the right place when they get shit on. Because there's a lot that can go wrong. Let's say you have 2 bad days at Darlington or Richmond for Harvick. Let's say you lose tire at Darlington, bad pit stop at Richmond. He's right in the shit with the rest of the crew, with the rest of the pack. So all of them are vulnerable. I think, yes, going into it, we'd be silly not to say Harvick and Hamlin are the guys to look for. But there are guys there that are creeping that know how to do this, who have done it before, who can come into the mix and really drop a bomb. And again, I think Bucky's trying to make a point here. Logano being one of them, Kyle Busch being another, that really know how to have a second charge and make a name for themselves when they've had a pretty poor season, to this point.
Who am I kidding? Logs ain't pulling this off.
He did it before, man.
I was going to say he's only 2 years removed from a championship.
Yeah, he's a defending champion, man. He's someone that is forgotten as a champion because it was sneaky, it was consistent. It wasn't as I don't know what the right word is, but it wasn't as sparkly or as it wasn't as loud as Harvick or Hamlin, if you will.
Yeah, it's kind of rugged, like myself.
Yes,
like Logs.
I mean, that hair is looking great, Buck.
It's a joke.
I love it.
I'm never cutting it.
I mean, that's why your golf score is steadily decreasing. You're getting better and better. It's just that you got that flow.
There's something to be said for that moment when you hit that really good shot. You pull your hat and you just run your hand through your hair. Give it a little shake. Pop that thing back on just so they know you're working with.
You got the Tommy Fleetwood flow, buddy.
It ain't Fleetwood. It's looking a lot more like Kevin Costner, Tin Cup type thing.
There we go.
Ricky Stenhouse.
Yes.
I need a mullet soon.
That's awesome. So Freeman, who's your pick? The last couple drivers to sneak into the playoffs here. Who you got?
All right, so that's kind of one of the things that I'm going to base some of the picks and bets on this weekend. So I'd be pretty hard pressed to pick the Benedetto, Byron, and Johnson, going into the weekend because only at best 2 of those 3 are going to make it into the playoffs. So I believe that you need to pick either Byron or Johnson, and in this situation, I'm going to pick Johnson to win out over Byron. Jimmy Johnson's tied with Denny Hamlin, 3 wins at Daytona. Johnson's been around for a while. We always talk about how prolific he's been at so many places. It's just he's been on a 3-year dry spell. I think he's going to win before the year's up. I think he will. I don't know if it's going to be this weekend, but Hendrick Motorsports has been showing up. They had 3 of their cars in the top 5 at Dover last week. Daytona is one of their stomping grounds. They have some of the most wins among car owners there. So I look for Johnson and Benedetto to win out over Byron straight up in a points battle. But again, we're in Daytona. Anyone can win, and you can only see one of those 3 in the playoffs.
I got a question for you, Freeman. It just dawned on me.
Go for it.
Are you preparing for a role on pit crew with those earmuffs you got on?
Yes, these are pit issued, and I already assigned my contract.
Yeah, and it seems like Bill Byron is the choice too, because you keep on bringing up old Bill Byron to win week over week. I haven't seen the results.
No,
I mean, it's not like I've been peddling Joey Logs. I haven't been doing that at all. And guess what's happened? No wins, no surprises. Yet I listen to you wearing your Bill Byron issued headset every week. This is Billy B. We're doing our thing. I just wanted to call you out on it. I know that you're in cahoots. You are in cahoots. For all I know, you're shipping down to Daytona here tomorrow, and you'll be in the pit.
I'm gonna be there.
I wish we could be there. I'm gonna say Jimmy Johnson is the guy that gets in, or one of the guys that gets in. This is the farewell tour, right? I mean, this is it. I feel like they're almost gonna let him in. Jimmy Johnson.
If he gets in, is NASCAR rigged? Like I imagine that's 80% of NASCAR Reddit topics right now. Is like, is NASCAR rigged?
Right.
Because of Jimmy Johnson. Like, do you guys think that he deserves a spot, or is he just kind of like, hey, he's an old crow and he's gonna find his way out?
I mean, to me, Johnson's one of the greatest of all time. No, I mean,
to all of us.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you all agree, but he needs to get in, man. Like if he has a top 10 finish, is he pretty much a lock?
No, because there's so many situations with the stage points. So for example, if Jimmy Johnson finishes 11th in the first two stages, but Byron wins one and finishes second in the other, he'll have like a 30-point advantage before the race is even over. So let's say, for example, that happens, Byron's gonna have to crash out, and then Johnson's gonna have to finish in the top 5 to counteract the previous points that Byron already earned during the race. So again, that's another added bonus to NASCAR. The stage racing, it adds a little bit more, unknown on the points, and gives these drivers the ability to be a little bit more ballsy. Before the stage racing, drivers were super consistent. These races at speed restrictor plate races were like guys just hanging out, chilling in the back because they don't want to crash. Now that we have points on the line every single stage, these guys are up front battling it out, testing the limits of their machines every lap. So, it's going to be a lot to fight for, and it's going to go down to the very last lap.
I love it, man. I'm looking forward to this race. Of course, our boy Harvick is starting on the pole, so he'll probably win stage 1 and stay hot,
Yeah, and honestly, Harvick has been someone who isn't notoriously great at restrictor plates, and depending on the day or the week or the situation, he's sometimes been the guy to go to the back of the pack and ride it out. So, if he can't command that leading pack at the start of the race, expect him to be in 28th to 35th the whole day, riding out, trying to miss the big one. That's a strategy for a lot of these guys, even the Kevin Harvicks, who's solidified his playoff position. He still wants to go win.
All right. I dig it, man. So let's take a quick look at the odds, shall we? So Denny is the only one, like I said, who's under 1,000. He's plus 650 to win. Then we got Harvick at plus 1,000. Kez, the Rat, at plus 1,200. Logano, plus 1,200. Blaney, plus 1,400. Kyle Busch, 1,400. Chase Elliott, 14. Truex, 1,600. Truex has been pretty solid lately.
Yeah. He's got, I don't know what we said. I think 3 third-place finishes and then 2 second-place finishes back-to-back. Like NASCAR was talking about it this week. It's like a 1 in 2 million chance or something to do that. Like, it's just, he's on a hot streak, just not winning. And if you're not winning, you're not on the tip of the tongue in NASCAR these days, because that's how important it is.
Right. Yeah. I think in the last 5 races, he's finished second or third.
Yeah, I think
that's insane.
Ridiculous.
Wow. Jimmy Johnson plus 1,800, Kurt Busch plus 2,000, all the way down.
So looking at those kind of numbers just throughout, I love the Chase Elliott at 14. Kurt Busch is always someone that we always look at these restrictor plate races, because he is so he's a seasoned vet, and he has very strong equipment at these tracks. Eric Almirola at 2,200 won this race a couple years ago. You have a Stenhouse Jr. who won comparable races like this in the past on these restrictor plate tracks. And there's a lot of other individuals down there who have a potential to get a W and really bring a big cash day. So if there's any race that you're gonna have a little bit of funny money, Daytona is the one to do it, and pick some of these 3,000 plus dogs.
Almirola has really fallen out of favor with me.
Hey, well, if they're not winning, they're not being talked about. Like, finishing second and third for 5 weeks in a row and barely even being mentioned is a shame. But that's just the way NASCAR is these days. Like, if you're not winning, you're falling to the side.
You know what's weird? You talked about plus 3,000. I'm looking at Chris Bell and Cole Custer. Chris Bell is a guy who has moments in these races where his car is looking as good as anybody on the track, and then he just seems to fade back. I look for him or Cole Custer to pull a top 5 here.
I like that. And one reason why these rookies don't have as much staying power, if you will, at some of these restrictor plate races, is because they still have that giant yellow stripe across their bumper. When these veteran drivers are coming up behind them and deciding who they're going to draft with, they're not going to pick Christopher Bell or Cole Custer over Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano. So it's also about picking your friends and enemies at these racetracks, because you can't get around this track alone at top speed. You need someone to push you, you need someone to pull you. So, if you are Chris Busch or Christopher Bell or Cole Custer, it's good to have friends in bigger and higher places. So when, you roll back to the Jimmy Johnsons of the pack, they don't give you the cold shoulder, they bump up to you. So that's something to also think about. Look at how those runs form and the decisions these drivers make to support certain teammates or non-manufacturer teammates. It's something, think about that a lot. It's a unique element of the race that unfolds multiple times a lap.
Yeah, for sure. I'd kind of like to see Eric Jones pull one out of a hat here, because right now he's on the outside looking in. So it's now or never,
and he's
right?
out of ride next year. So, that's a big statement. He won here earlier this year in a non-points paying race at the shootout, or the duel, whichever one it was. I forget exactly. I think it was the shootout. But again, he has won a points race here. He's won non-points races here. He knows how to wheel it around this racetrack. And if he got in, that's going to make a really, really, really big case for one of the big manufacturers and teams picking him up next year, because he does have the talent that you needed to succeed in the sport.
For sure. Who else do you like? Like, who are your favorites to win here?
Oh, when we look at restrictor plate, again, I think that right now the Fords have the hot hand rather. So I'm looking at Keselowski, Blaney, Logano to be the favorites from a speed perspective. I think that as we see, the books are still going with Hamlin and Harvick. I don't think you can go wrong there. But if you're going to look at some middle of the pack guys who I like as well, I think of Kurt Busch, Bubba Wallace, Bowman are guys who may not compete for the win in the last 5 laps, but are going to have solid finishes, going into the playoffs.
All right, I dig it, man. So, shall we take a look at some of the Monkey Knife Fight numbers? It's interesting to see. I'm not going to share my screen on this one because my account is currently goosed, and I got to wait till Friday to re-up the silos. So I got to wait till tomorrow. We're recording here on Thursday. So I'm just going to go through some of the numbers to see what we can do. If you guys have never played on Monkey Knife Fight before,
way to pull that curtain back.
An inside look.
Is that when your allowance comes in, or what?
Yes, that's when my DFS Monkey Knife Fight allowance comes in on Friday. So when we record on Thursdays, it really puts me in a tough spot, But if you've never played on Monkey Knife Fight before, fastest growing DFS site in the world, love it. I am actually excited. On Tuesday, I'll be live on the Fantasy Focused YouTube channel interviewing the president of Monkey Knife Fight, Mr. Nick Solsky. So I'm excited for that. But make sure you guys use code FOCUSED when you make your first deposit. You'll get 100% match bonus there. But so I'm looking at the more or less in terms of point totals here, gents. And again, point totals, if you've never played before, first place gets you 20 points. Second place gets you 19, 18 for third, all the way down to 20th, which only gets you 1 point. And then you are getting a 10th of a point for every single lap led. So it's hard to get to these point totals a lot of times, but these are lower than normal. Like normally on a day like today, if it wasn't at Daytona or a weekend like this weekend, I should say, you'd see Harvick and Hamlin at like 18 and a half, 19 and a half points, which is a pretty high total. So to give you guys a point of reference here, Kevin Harvick is set at 14 and a half, the same as Ryan Blaney this week.
Yep, and for the folks out there jumping in Monkey Knife Fight, trying to understand why that is it's a few reasons. Yes, Daytona is very it's unpredictable, but also unlike these other tracks like you mentioned, Levy, you don't have drivers who lead half of the laps, who get all those points from leading so many of those laps. This is a track that is known for lead changes and a number of different leaders. There's going to be 15 different drivers that lead 10 or more laps. So, and also you can be leading on lap 5, and before you get into turn 1, you can be in last place from a crash. So there's so many unknowns which contribute to these lower point totals at a track like this.
So what's the strategy? Do we just fade everyone for the most part?
Yeah, I'm gonna call that that's my Bucky strat is fading heavier on some of these tracks and some of these courses that are a bit more unknown, because we always talk about it. We went a bit heavy on the Moors, and a lot of these competitions because we're getting acclimated to the scoring system and how it works. And what we've realized is large majority of the time, especially on tracks like this, drivers are scoring less points than projected. So when there's a lot of unknown, go on the safe side for less, especially at tracks like road courses and super speedways like Daytona.
Even with a guy like Harvick here who's starting in the one hole, you still want to lean less?
Yeah, Harvick is someone that I don't have a lot of faith in at restrictor plate tracks. He's someone who hasn't won here a lot. He's won a 500 before, but when you look at his style of racing, I look back at all the years of watching the sport. He's someone that I think of who's just sit in the back and kind of let the race unfold, and then he would shoot up front and try to make it at the last minute. I don't like that strategy. I think the winners are the ones who are up front most of the day, who are avoiding the trouble by being the leader. And I think that kind of wait and out back strategy just isn't scalable. It isn't replicatable. It works every once in a blue moon, but unless he stays up front and fights it the whole race, Harvick isn't someone that I'm going to expect to win.
All right, fair enough. I like it. I hope that, I was hoping that he would prove us wrong on the road track a couple weeks back, and he didn't do it there either. So what about Blaney 14.5? I know he's one of your kind of sleepers to win the race. Would you lean more on him?
Yes. Compared to Harvick, I would like Blaney over Harvick. If you're going to like a straight up bet, Blaney has won in Dega in the past. And this is it's his Daytona, not Talladega, but the restrictor plate tracks, very similar style and racing. He knows how to get around here. And again, Penske is owning restrictor plate wins from a Ford perspective. So being a part of that team is a big advantage. So, again, Harvick and Blaney both driving in Fords. When it comes to restrictor plate success of recent, Penske Motorsports and Penske's team has definitely had the strength. So that's why I think Blaney has a better chance than Harvick in this specific instance.
I like that because, if you're a gambler and you're listening to this, there's a lot of books out there, sites, whatever you want to say, that offer head-to-head matchups. And you can probably get some pretty good money on a Blaney over a Harvick.
Yeah.
That would probably be plus money there. Let's look at the next one here. Keselowski set at 13.5 and Kyle Busch set at 12.5. Thoughts on those guys?
I haven't seen anything from Kyle to make me think that he's gonna, score any meaningful points. I think that when the playoffs start, we're gonna see a new Kyle, but we're still in a terrible 2020 for him. And until next week, and I'm not going to expect anything but maybe a 15th or worse, or if he doesn't crash out in the first stage. I mean, he has been getting his his lunch money stolen every minute of the day. It's terrible.
Yeah, he's a bum. He stinks. His wife is hot though, so it's all good. The two highest of the weekend. Sorry, I'm a big fan of her on Instagram. She's a great follow.
What's the handle?
Her name's Samantha Bush, I think. Samantha.
Yeah, that's her name for sure. Yep, good follow for sure.
Yeah, I'm on it.
There you go, Buck. The two highest point totals of the weekend here, and these are low for point of reference here, but Denny Hamlin and Joey Logs both at 15.5. Thoughts?
Yeah, Hamlin definitely has a better chance than Logs, I think, of getting it this weekend. I think when it comes to straight up skill right now, Hamlin is doing something that Harvick isn't. I think Harvick has a combination of raw skill and just that raw speed, but Hamlin's doing a bit more than the other drivers to overcome adversity and win. I think on a regular basis. So he's someone who has won recently here at Daytona, someone who knows his way around the track. Going head to head, I've got Hamlin straight up, but 15.5 is still a big number at a 400-mile restrictor plate course when you don't really have much to lose. So he could put his car in places that he maybe wouldn't have if he was William Byron or Jimmy Johnson. And I think for those reasons, I would go less on both of those point totals, but prefer Hamlin over Logs in a head-to-head.
All right, cool. All right, last thing we'll touch on here for if you like rapid fires, we like rapid fires a lot. You got Denny versus Logs, and Denny actually has a half a point plus a half a point.
Let's take Denny all day on that one.
All right,
I'm with you. I would say yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, coming from the guy with a Logs hat on. Interesting.
Not anymore, man.
Yeah, I went backwards too. Let's see. We got Blaney versus Harvick, and Blaney's getting the half point. I know you guys are going to say Blaney here.
I'm going to say Blaney. I don't know what Bucky's going to say.
I'm not going to doubt Kevin Harvick right now, so I'm going to go.
Right. It is hard to doubt him. He's just the man is unbelievable out there.
I'm like that one stock analyst who's calling the recession every fucking day. One day I'm gonna be right. Harvick is gonna bust eventually.
All the stocks are going down.
We're going down.
Right. And then Kez versus Chase. Chase is a 1.5 point dog.
I just figured out that Freeman is Mark Miller, the Buffalo Bills fan.
Yes.
From the old archive video. Dallas is going down, Jerry.
A Bills football fan?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
those are some fucking
Mark
creatures.
Miller, spelled with a C.
Yes.
Just
Love
like your boy Ryan.
That's it. That's my middle name, Mark with a C. So what do you think here? 1.5 points is a lot for Chase. Plus
yeah.
1.5.
So he has so Harvick is a 1.5 favorite. You said. I wanted to make sure I was.
No, Harvick is a 0.5 point favorite.
Okay. I'm not gonna go with Harvick on this one. We'll split down the middle here. Bucky will go with Harvick. I'm gonna go away from Harvick.
Okay. But on Kez or Chase, I'm saying.
Oh shoot, sorry. Chase is someone who again has had wins here recently, and Keselowski has had a win in a restricted plate already this year. That is probably the hardest of the three. Just looking at the recent track record of snaking some wins, I think that ability that Kez has is more valuable than Chase's ability to close a race this weekend. So I'm going to go with Chase. Or I'm going to go with Kez in a straight up head to head. But again, Chase Elliott's someone who has won here of recent. They're going to be very closely matched and see them drafting together most of the day.
Yeah, I feel like that's a tough one. I'd probably
It's the hardest one, man, of the three.
Yeah, there's another one that's Kez versus Kyle Busch and Chase versus Truex.
I would take Chase over Truex no matter what the differential was on that one. What was the one previous to that?
Kez versus Busch.
Oh,
I'll take Kez. Give me some Kez.
Yeah, is Kez have the advantage? Half point, full point?
He's a 1.5. That's how down the industry is on Kyle Busch, on Rowdy Busch. Not so rowdy anymore.
No, it doesn't even matter what paint scheme he's driving these days, Buck. He finds the wall no matter what. So, yeah, let's go away from Busch this weekend.
All right, fair enough. So, yeah, that's it. I'm excited. We're almost to playoff season. You got any last words of wisdom here headed into Daytona?
Man, we say it when we open the pod. It's been real chalky of recent, and it's kind of been taking the wind out of my NASCAR sails. So I'm looking for a hard reset next weekend. We're going into the playoffs. Those top 16 drivers will be on a semi-even playing field, much closer than they have been all year. The next three races, Darlington, we have a throwback race. It's going to be badass. It's going to be the third time we're racing there this year. These guys know that track. We're going to have a lot of good action. We have Richmond, which is a semi-short track. It has a lot of action in there as well. And then Bristol, arguably one of my favorite tracks of the year. We have the Bull Ring. We're going to go in there and tear some equipment up and then go into the round of 12. So a great 3 weeks ahead of us. And I'm just really excited to hit reset on the NASCAR points and start fresh here this weekend.
Yeah.
Next weekend.
I'm looking forward to just all the excitement that playoff racing entails. I love the 3 set of tracks we have there for the round of 16. The thing that's really going to bug me is the fact that they're doing it in Phoenix for the last one.
Right.
I don't want to harp too much on it, but I really question this move. It doesn't make much sense to me. I hate the track. There's nothing exciting about Phoenix. And the fact I hate where that finish line is in Phoenix.
They just moved it because they thought it was going to make it even better.
No,
it's crazy.
Stinks.
It's crazy. I agree 100%. And they said that they've changed a lot about that track of recent to prepare for this exact moment. And I think if anything, they've decreased the value of their race weekend and the consistency that we were used to as far as championship schedule. So
I don't like it.
I'm a long-term NASCAR fan, man, and Phoenix isn't one of those tracks that I love. The one shining light in that track is I remember Dale Earnhardt Jr. won there in the early 2000s after his dad passed away. That was the best part of that track ever. But ever since, it's kind of it's a big short track, and that's something that Kevin Harvick just owns.
I was going to say
huge short track.
It's Harvick year. It's the year of the Harvick. They probably just did it because they knew that he was going to be there in the Final Four, and they want him to win. It's they want him to ride off into the sunset, even though he's probably not going to retire unexpectedly.
Well, it's one of those things that I just don't know that it's like an identity crisis in Phoenix. It really is. I mean, it's 34 seconds per lap, something like that.
Yeah, something in there.
And then you have Michigan that's like 39 or 40, and that's a speedway. Like, it's just in between. It's stuck in the void. Yeah. I hate it.
Yeah, and it's this is something that has been coming for a while, and I think it's political. I think it has to do with the ownership of these different teams, and who owns what. Different management groups own different swaths of track, so they're lobbying to get their race at their track because this is the biggest race of the year. So I think we haven't gone to the West Coast in so long. We missed our Sonoma race out there, Levy, and we haven't been west of the Mississippi in a long time. So
yeah, that's weird that they're doing it now.
Yeah, so they're kind of resorting back to the original schedule. From a logistic perspective, it creates ease, but I just don't think Phoenix is the place that we want to see the championship played out. Put Bristol, some of these short tracks.
Right. I'd say Atlanta.
Atlanta would be a good one, but the reason they put Phoenix there is because it's an intermediate. It's not big, it's not small, and they think that because of that, it gives people equal opportunity to win. That may be a little bit of it. Who knows? But I hope that this changes more frequently. Every 3 years, new track. Every 2 years, new track to be the championship, so that people don't get used to that groove. So, I'm nonetheless, you could put Phoenix as every single race of the playoffs. I'm going to watch it every single weekend anyways.
For sure. I think I'm most looking forward to dusting off the old too tough to tame hat. Darlington is my spot, so I'm ready for that. I only wear the hat when we're racing at that track, so I'm excited for
that
it.
old
family
corduroy,
tradition.
Burgundy corduroy.
That's right, man. It's got a nice spot on the shelf in the closet. It collects a little bit of dust, but I love busting that bad boy out 2 or 3 times a year.
Here's the question, Victor. Everything's great. We're doing great. We got racing coming up this weekend. Can't complain at all. Folks, back in like the 70s where corduroy was like a big thing, how do you keep that dust free? Like, what were they doing in the closets to keep corduroy looking fresh? Like, how much? Look, being a man in the year 2020 in terms of wardrobe choices could not be simpler, right?
Right.
Like, got 8 of these shirts.
What are we all wearing? We're all wearing. You're wearing a Henley, plain Henley. I'm wearing just a standard like designer V-neck tee. He even has a nice like throwback, but it's a nice looking tee. Like, when I go out to a bar, I never throw a collar on. Like, all I do is I just have a t-shirt that I put a steamer on for 5 seconds, and then we're good to go.
That's right.
What went into the preparation with the corduroy back in the day? I feel like you had to just sweep that thing. You were basically like an FBI inspector. You're going for fingerprints and shit on your own cords.
Yeah, like, you need like a bottle of compressed air to clean those off.
Right.
They didn't have compressed air as the 70s, Freeman.
Yeah, you could find it somewhere.
Well, yes. They did. It's called Whippets.
Oh man! All right. I
actually they all had whipped cream bottles. Just
find some of those at a Fish concert.
Yes, there you go.
The Fish wasn't around then. They were at the Dead, and they got everything they needed for the corduroy. I don't know why that sparked in my head.
Let's bring it back. Corduroy's coming back.
That's right.
I would sweat my balls off in corduroy. I am 100% anti-cord.
Yeah, it's winter seersucker.
Man. I've enjoyed this last rant, this 5-minute rant here to wrap up episode number 3.
I needed to get that one off. I needed to fire my clip.
Yes, it's been fun, gents, as always. Looking forward to Daytona this weekend, and the playoffs around the corner. If you're just coming across our channel for the first time here on YouTube, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, that like button, whatever the kids are saying. And if you're coming across our podcast for the first time, make sure you're subscribing as well. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever else you listen to podcasts. We will see you guys next week. Looking forward to it, and good luck in your monkey knife fights and your bets this weekend. Talk to you soon.
See you soon, guys.
Good night, boys.